From a young age, we've all been taught a phrase that involves curiosity and a cat. Yes, we were taught that shoving our noses into a situation that didn't involve us will probably always end badly, and that we should all focus on our own business. But have you ever wondered what this kind of curiosity really does to an actual cat? Well, it seems as though our feline friends aren't any less curious than us, and one particular cat warmed all of our hearts when his instinctive nature found him in an unlikely position. After discovering a baby out in the cold, this cat did something totally unexpected that will forever go down in history. Maybe cats and curiosity aren't such a bad mix after all. Cats are present in millions of homes across the globe and for good reason. Even if they sometimes scratch our furniture too much, make a mess, and give us terrible allergies, we still love them. Unlike dogs, cats don't tend to be the warmest of pets, as they're usually a bit standoffish and sometimes even a little mean. But apparently they can be loyal to their home and to people more than we ever thought possible. Perhaps this is why one curious cat just couldn't walk away when she heard a baby crying. Masha the cat knew that she had to do something to help the baby that was clearly in distress. The thought of running away and charging in the opposite direction of the crying didn't even cross her mind, because she knew she couldn't leave the child. Instead, she knew she had to help in one way or another, which is why this story's so incredible. It tells the tale of an unlikely hero and an instinctive bond between animals and humans. However, to truly understand this story, we need to know a little more about where it all took place and who was involved, namely a Russian woman named Irina Lavrova. A resident of Obninsk, Russia, Irina has spent a huge part of her life living in a large apartment block surrounded by many of her friends and acquaintances. Yet not all the residents are human. This area is also home to a cat named Masha, who takes up residence in the entrance hall. It's believed that Masha first made her way into the apartment building in 2012 and loved it so much she couldn't want to leave. Luckily, none of the residents had any problems with the fact that the new feline addition was in their building. They knew how cold it could get outside and they wanted the cat to be as safe and happy as possible. Because of this, they would make sure Masha was given food and water and acknowledged with strokes and greetings when they walked past. Masha lived a perfect life in the apartment building for around 3 years before something upset her daily antics in 2015. Masha was a relatively quiet cat and kept to herself, which is why the surrounding residents were so surprised and upset to hear Masha crying and meowing at the top of her lungs. One particular resident thought that Masha was being harmed in some way and immediately left her apartment to see what was really going on. She ran down the stairs to find Masha and was quickly followed by someone else. This resident wasn't the only one to hear Masha's intense cries. Irina, the cat's owner, also heard the piercing noise from her apartment and knew something was wrong. Masha was such a huge part of her life, she just couldn't imagine how she'd feel if she was hurt or injured in any way. So Lavrova followed the other resident and made her way downstairs to where Masha normally slept, to find her sitting there and making noise. Soon the two realized Masha wasn't alone. The two residents stared at each other for a few seconds while they took the scene in front of them. There was Masha in her normal spot looking up at them, but there was also a new addition next to her. Lying behind the garbage chute and inside the box Masha usually used as a bed was a baby. The residents were overwhelmed and had no idea what was going on, especially as Masha seemed to be protecting the baby that seemed to have been abandoned there and was clearly distressed. For some reason, Masha heard the baby crying and decided to take on responsibility for the abandoned child. Instead of hissing at him or scaring him, she decided to look after the baby as if it were her own and make sure he was okay. Not only did she lay down next to the baby to keep him warm, but her presence also seemed to soothe the child as it stopped crying as soon as she made her way into the bed. Lavrova and the other resident of the building were utterly shocked and couldn't believe the sight that was in front of them. After the event, Lavrova was interviewed by a Russian television network by the name of RT. During this interview, she was asked about what her initial reaction was when she first saw Masha curled up next to an abandoned baby. She confessed that she was incredibly overwhelmed and had no idea what to do at first. It wasn't until she really looked at the situation that she realized Masha had actually been keeping the baby warm for hours and trying to get the attention of people around her. Amazingly, Masha had been able to keep the young child shielded from the harsh conditions outside, and she may have even saved the baby's life.